guys, we can take a look today at the Atari 7800 video game system. 1986 was a release, wide like in the whole North America, but it was actually test marketed in 1984 before Warner sold Atari to Jack Tramiel, who bought Atari. But then this was shelved for 2 years and it came out in 1986. They wanted to do that because they saw Nintendo was successful with NES, so they're like, hey, let's release the Atari 7800 and compete. Little they know that Sega also joined the fold and released the Master System the same year, and this didn't end up selling as much as Atari wanted to, so they also did a follow-up to this, which was the Atari XEGS, but that's another video. But yeah, let's take a look today here at the Atari 7800 again. And here is the system itself. I'm going to pull out the system. I got this last year on eBay. I was looking, never had one growing up. Well, I wasn't really into video games and I was still very little. So, but yeah. So Atari 7800, this one's in good shape. This is not scratched at all. And power is nice. Pause, select, reset, and then let's take a look in the bottom here. This is where the controller ports are. I don't know what those switches are. Someone watching probably knows. Maybe, let's put it on. Yeah, I do not know what those switches are. Maybe for turbo, I'm just guessing something else. Oh, it's glossy here on the left. Way before glossy, remember back on the PS3 days. See, glossy black, interesting. And then our glossy plastic. And then let's take a look here on the back. So this Atari, the originals for Atari, I read some were manufactured in Sunnyvale, California, but this one was manufactured in Taiwan. Atari 7800 made in Taiwan. Atari, like a lot of products I have from Atari, they're made in Taiwan. Don't really have any that's made in Sunnyvale, California. Okay, so the proprietary, this is the most expensive part, is the AC adapter. But since it's proprietary, you can't really use aftermarket. I mean, there are some, but this is the most expensive, like, replacement part for the 7800 is the power supply. And then we have channel 2 and 3 and an RF. I'm puzzled why Atari used an RF here. They could have put composite as well, since they did it the next year with the XEGS, but their home console, they have RF. In 1986, by that time, Nintendo already had composite on their NES, and so did Sega with the Master System. But Atari, they left it here, like stuff they used in the early 80s and the 70s, RF, which made no sense to me. So for me, I have to put this old-fashioned way unless I get it modded for composite or maybe even like RGB or something. Maybe someone does an HDMI mod these days. I don't know. But yeah, so this is the system itself. And then let's take a look here. I'm going to put this down. Nice place over here. Okay. Then we have here the controller. Well, here. This is the proprietary, if you want to know the model number. It is part of C024471-001. 9 volts. Hey, made in the Philippines. And then, yeah, caution there. But, okay. So, next, we have the controller. Looks like an evolution of the 2600 controller. Still, they're using this joystick. They haven't moved on to like the NES style, but in Europe, if you do get the European controller looks like an NES controller. It has more of the traditional look that we're all used to with the directional pad and buttons, but not this thing, you know. I don't know. I didn't grow up in this era with this joystick thing. I grew up in the NES style pads of what we're using today even. But yeah, this is how the directional. When I play this longer sessions, my hand starts to get like tired or starts to ache because of this thing. But I don't know. I think you could use the Sega Genesis controller. Correct me if I'm wrong, just like the 2600. And again, that was the proprietary power supply. And then let's look at the rest of this box before we get into some gameplay. Okay, so it says right here, I like that it says right here, arcade quality graphics, color, and sound, plays all 7800 games and exclusive super games. What were the super games? Plays all 2600 games. That's nice, but it has a crappy sound chip from the 2600. So the 5200 and the XEGS and all Atari 8-bit computers sound better than this thing and the 2600. So yeah, and then we'll take a look here. So exclusive. Okay, here's the library exclusive. We have Impossible Mission, Touchdown, Shoplifter. I have Shoplifter. That's a super game? What's that say? Can't really read that. I don't know. What is this? Avatar? I can't read what it says, but yeah, I don't think that game came out. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this thing came out. Karateka came out. I don't have that game. I'd like to get a multi-card for this, but it's not cheap. And there is no like multi-card. There's a flash card for it, which is released. I saw on Adam Korlick's video, but it's like over like $150. I'm like, no, I wish I got it free like Adam did, but no. So yeah, that's the back. And then here's the bottom on all the games. We have Pole Position 2, Ms. Pac-Man, Joust, Shoplifter, Xevious, Centipede, Desert Falcon, Deluxe Asteroids, Karateka, Sky Fox. I don't know if this was released. I don't see Sky Fox. One-on-one basketball, Ball Blazer, Winter. This is one of the games that uses the Pokey chip instead of the crappy chip from the 2600 days. Winter Games, Impossible Mission, Summer Games, and Hat Trick. Super Games, Atari Classics. See, Atari was still banking on people rehashing these old classics from the 2600 era, and then rehash them again in 5200 era, and then the 8-bit Atari computer was the same thing, and then the 7800 era. So Atari never left those arcade classics. Sega also, but they also brought newer, fresh games. They didn't rehash the old classics all that much compared to Atari. So that's in a nutshell the box. So let's next take a look at some games for the Atari 7800. All right, I got the 7800 set up here, and we're just gonna look at a bunch of these games. They look the same size as the 2600, obviously, because this is backwards compatible with 2600 games. But unfortunately, the sound chip is the same as the 2600. The couple of games like Ball Blazer had a chip built into the cartridge, which had a better sound chip for this. But let's look at Asteroids first. I've always liked Asteroids. So we have Atari here and Asteroids. But that is Asteroids for you. Asteroids is Asteroids. Oh geez, since playing one hand, again, not really the best, but there you go, individual. It looks better than the 2600 version, but that's not saying that much. But it looks nicer. It's not the same thing as the wireframe on the arcade that everyone's used to, but this is 1987. Still a great game. I like Asteroids a lot, but they're recycling old ideas, which is fine. It's just that people have moved on from this time already. Like a lot of consumers, they wanted new experiences like Super Mario Brothers, Zelda. I like the 7800 a lot. It could have more potential. That was just disappointing. I mean, it could have been a great competitor, you know, to the NES. Only thing is that the NES had issues. Nintendo had a monopoly by then. It's a shame because Atari had such a loyal fan base for the 2600 days, and then they just slowly diminished, you know, because of bad marketing in the 5200 era. They couldn't really recover. It's much like Sega when they had Sega Saturn. At least it was successful in Japan, but in America, Sega Saturn and a 32X, Sega CD, you know, it was like Atari had these duds as well, like this 5200. 700 did better, but it was still not as successful as the 2600. Then the Atari XEGS, which was just an 8-bit computer. And then the Lynx, which did okay, but the Game Gear and the Game Boy just destroyed it. So anyway, I'm not trying to talk negative about Atari. Atari's still a great brand. You know, without Atari, there would be no Nintendo, because of 2600. But anyway, sorry rambling. Let's go back to this game. But yeah, Atari is Asteroids, still fun to play, and it's much better than the 2600 port. But yeah, still has that classic sound. Yeah, I like Asteroids. I like this game. And it's a classic. It's Atari classic. Oh, all right. So that is Asteroids. Still a good game to play. All right. And there's the snow effect to the RF, and automatically it goes to mute. Thanks Sony Sony TV. And then let's look at it next. There's the artwork for Asteroids, 1988. And then we have here Shoplifter, the super game. Let's take a look here how super it is. Okay. All right. It does look better. So I guess this is the super game. This has graphics on par to like the NES, of course, and then the Master System. It doesn't look as crisp though as the Master System, but yeah. Oh. Like, I think RetroCore has a ports battle of this. Shoplifter on the 7800 versus other systems, like, this was also on the Master System. But yeah, this is still a fun game to play. But yeah, sorry, trying to improvise here with one hand. Oh, jeez. So that is Shoplifter. If you've never played Shoplifter, you gotta play Shoplifter. So your goal is to rescue all these people, like right there, and you gotta take them back. Oh, but before you get killed by the armor, the tank. So that is it. I played pretty well there with one hand, but probably now be like, ooh. So here is the artwork for Shoplifter. I think it's hard to take out. But the 7800 lasted from 1986 to 1992, so it wasn't that much of a failure for Atari, but because they canceled it because they were focusing on the Atari Lynx at the time, and also they were developing for the Atari Jaguar, so they had to get rid of that to discontinue this. So here's Galaga. Galaga is Galaga, and there we go. Galaga 1984. It's a good port of Galaga too. It's a little bit slower though than, because I just played Galaga on the SG-1000. But this looks better than the SG-1000 one because it's more powerful than the SG-1000. But yeah, this is a fine port of Galaga on the Atari 7800. It feels like the arcade. Since this is on RF, it's not as sharp, but it still does a job, you know. So that is Galaga, because Galaga is Galaga. But I wish I could get the European controller, which has a directional pad, but it's so expensive now. If you look at Mark from Classic Game Room, his older videos, he has that. And Mark would probably say this is one of the better systems because this is what he had growing up. But yeah, so this is, I'll just continue playing. Oh, well, it's game over now. Anyway, let's look next at some other games. So let's look at the attacking game. It came with your Atari 7800, which is Pole Position 2. So let's put it in there. And the Atari logo. And Pole Position 2. So let's just do the test one since I can only play with one hand. Looks much better than pole position on the 5200 and the 2600, but yeah. Sorry, I can't not do. Oh, great. There we go. Now I'm gonna crash into that. Yeah, it's hard to control this thing because of joystick. This huge thing versus a joystick, but yeah, I don't want to make this a negative review of the 7800. 7800 is one of Atari's much better. I feel like it's gameplay wise and graphics, of course, it looks better than the 5200. But sound wise, no, the 5200 is better than the 7800. But yeah, if you're an Atari fan, you should pick one of these up. It's like essential. You got to get the trilogy of all the Atari home consoles. 2600. Well, unless you want to just have one, you could play 2600 games with this thing. 2600, 5200, and 7800. I would rate this second place after the 2600 in terms of like Atari home consoles. But yeah. So pole position 2. This is what came with your system. And then we'll look at one more game. Rubletron 2084. It improves upon the version on the 5200. And, oh, geez. That's what happens when you don't have a clean cartridge or you didn't put it all the way in. There we go. Okay. Rubletron 1984. I'm putting none of this since I can't really... What? What happened? Oh. Oh, geez. What happened? Interesting. I don't know what happened. Okay. I had to fix that. Was weird. Alright. I'll just do intermediate. So the purpose here is to get rid of all the robots, but it's cooler with the 5200 version, which has, like, you can use dual sticks. But of course this one you can't. Oh, come on. You're supposed to rescue the people here and you're supposed to fire. But obviously with one hand it's hard to. There we go. Oh. Come on. No. It's better to play with two hands. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to show you how this console was, the 7800. It's a good system. You should pick it up. I like my 7800, but I felt like Atari should have released in 1984. They would have had a better chance against Nintendo and Sega if they released it 2 years earlier. It would have been the first 8-bit console to be released of like the major corporations, but I still think it wouldn't stand a chance against Nintendo, but at least it would probably be second place after Nintendo, and then Sega would have been third place. But anyway, that is my review or thoughts of the Atari 7800. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, take care.